Welcome to this deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're digging into the aftermath of the Miami Grand Prix. You sent over a really interesting collection of articles and analyses, mainly from F1 blogs, it looks like, covering the fallout.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, isn't there? Miami certainly stirred things up.
Absolutely. So we're going to try and synthesize the key events, focusing on, well, quite a few things, really. McLaren's drivers.
Norris and Piastri, yeah. Big talking point.
Then Mercedes, specifically George Russell's quiet consistency.
Right, the invisible man getting results.
And Williams. Their surprising pace, but also the strategic questions that raises.
Definitely raises eyebrows, that one.
And of course, we have to talk about Ferrari. A bit of a turbulent weekend for them, it seems.
Understatement, maybe, yeah.
So our mission here is to cut through all the noise, pull out the most crucial insights from F1 blogs and the other discussions, and really understand the bigger picture taking shape after Miami.
Okay, sounds good. Where should we start? McLaren seems like a hot topic.
Let's do it. McLaren. What really stood out from the F1 blogs analysis was this contrast they drew between Lando Norris's raw speed,
Which is undeniable.
and Oscar Piastri's overall performance, his racecraft, his consistency.
Yeah, F1 blogs really leaned into that. They highlighted Norris nailing spring qualifying, that shorter session. And he was actually closing in on Verstappen before the safety car came out. So the potential was definitely there.
But then F1 blogs made this pretty bold claim, didn't they? Suggesting Piastri's maybe McLaren's #1 right now.
Well, yeah, but not purely based on one-lap speed. They argued it's more about his strategic intelligence, how he managed the race.
Okay, how so?
They pointed out Piastri seemed more, patient when chasing Verstappen. He waited, capitalized on Max's error later on.
Right, whereas Norris's earlier attempt on Verstappen, F1 blogs called it what? Overly aggressive?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bit too eager after that poor start, perhaps trying to make amends immediately. They saw Piastri's approach as more calculated, more mature, maybe.
You can see both sides, though. Norris wanting to strike, Piastri playing the longer game.
It does raise an interesting point, though, that F1 blogs touched on. Does this Miami weekend, even without a win for Norris, actually reinforce his position more than, say, Saudi Arabia did?
How do you mean? Because the pace was clearly there.
Exactly. Pole in the sprint, catching Verstappen before the safety car. It shows the car, and he had the speed. The start seems to be the main thing that, tripped him up.
That's true. The potential for the win felt very real. And F1 blogs also mentioned that Piastri didn't find it easy getting past Verstappen either.
No. But he eventually forced the error, didn't he? Which Norris didn't manage in that earlier fight.
So it suggests Norris has the ultimate pace, but maybe needs to refine the execution in those key moments.
Perhaps. F1 blogs certainly seems to think the competition between them is just going to stay incredibly close all season. It's fascinating to watch.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Mercedes. George Russell. That podium in Miami.
Yeah, almost flew under the radar with everything else going on, but F1 blogs definitely picked up on his quiet effectiveness.
They called him Invisible Russell, apparently, which I guess speaks volumes about how he just gets on with it.
It does. Even when the Mercedes isn't, the absolute fastest, he keeps bringing home decent points.
Yeah.
F1 blogs acknowledge luck played a role in Miami.
Sure, the timing of things.
But they also stressed his ability to just grab those opportunities when they pop up.
Yeah.
He's always there or thereabouts.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, his consistency is, pretty impressive. F1 blogs pointed out he's only 6 points behind Max Verstappen in the championship.
Which is kind of staggering, right?
Yeah.
In a car that most people wouldn't put on par with a Red Bull right now.
It really highlights his ability to squeeze everything out of that package.
And F1 blogs drew that interesting parallel with all the hype around Kimi Antonelli.
Right. The future star.
Yeah. But they questioned if Antonelli is really the automatic choice over Russell for the future Mercedes seat. I mean, Russell's points haul is significantly higher.
That consistency is gold for a team, isn't it?
Absolutely. They mentioned, generational factors might push Mercedes towards Antonelli eventually, but based on current performance, Russell's making a very strong case.
It really feels like Russell is consistently performing, maybe even better than the car's perceived level. He's maximizing things week in, week out.
He seems to be. It's impressive.
Okay, now for maybe the biggest surprise package in Miami, Williams. Alex Albon, P5.
Huge result for them. And F1 blogs was really clear. This wasn't just luck from retirements. They genuinely felt the Williams was the 4th fastest car there.
Which is, wow, Quite a statement. Credit to them.
Massive credit, but it leads to those strategic questions, doesn't it?
You mean the Saints' comments about Ferrari focusing wind tunnel time on 2026 already?
Exactly. And the worry highlighted on F1 blogs is that Williams might be tempted to do the same thing. Sacrifice development on this year's car to get a head start on the new regs.
Oh, the classic dilemma. F1 blogs brought up the BMW Sauber example from 2008, didn't they?
They did, a direct comparison. Yeah. BMW Sauber had some real success, even won a race, then switched focus entirely to the '09 rules.
And it didn't really pay off in the long run, did it? And arguably hurt their '08 season, too.
Precisely. So there's a real risk Williams could hit a plateau now, or even drop back if other teams keep pushing hard on developing their 2025 cars.
F1 blogs did add the caveat that maybe some tracks just suit the Williams car particularly well.
True, track specificity is always a factor. But the underlying concern is whether this Miami pace is sustainable without ongoing upgrades. They even suggested Williams could have scored more points with maybe slightly sharper race management.
It just shows that balancing act, doesn't it? Present performance versus future regulations. It's a massive gamble.
It really is. We'll have to watch Williams closely to see which path they take.
Right. And now, Ferrari. Oof. Miami was not what they hoped for.
Not at all. A major disappointment. F1 blogs pretty bluntly called them the fifth fastest team there. That's stark.
It is. And Charles Leclerc's comments afterwards, they painted quite a picture.
Yeah, you could feel the frustration. Saying he feels he's already got the maximum potential out of the SF25, that's worrying.
And admitting that the decisions that we have taken as a team have not been the correct ones. He seemed to be pointing fingers at strategy, particularly those swaps with Hamilton.
That plus VASSEUR openly admitting they're doing something wrong, possibly with getting the tires working properly.
Yeah.
It suggests the problems run fairly deep right now.
They seem a bit lost, trying to figure out why the pace just wasn't there.
And then you layer on the Hamilton side of the garage, the radio messages.
Yeah, pretty tense.
His obvious frustration about not being allowed past Leclerc initially, then being told to give the place back later, it really hints at some internal friction.
And F1 blogs reported on that private chat Hamilton had with VASSEUR afterwards, telling him not to be so sensitive.
And Hamilton apparently felt he could have said much worse things over the radio. It shows the pressure cooker environment there. He's a fighter, wants the best result, and clearly felt the strategy compromised him.
It's such a contrast, isn't it? The huge marketing buzz around Hamilton joining Ferrari.
Massive. Global headlines.
Versus the actual sporting results so far this season, especially in Miami. F1 blogs is relaying reports from Italy talking about deep rifts already, questioning if this luxury marriage is heading for trouble.
That botched position swap seems to be a real focal point for the criticism. It didn't seem to help either driver, really.
No, it looked clumsy. And it just adds to the pressure. The expectations for Hamilton at Ferrari were and are astronomical.
Absolutely. And right now, they're not being met. F1 blogs also mentioned rumors of technical changes coming, maybe a new rear suspension for the SF25.
Trying to find that missing performance, they'll need it. The pressure heading into Imola, their home race from the Tifosi, it's going to be immense.
Oh, definitely. F1 blogs highlighted some pretty critical headlines already, like Cavallino Mancante, the missing prancing horse.
Yeah.
The scrutiny is intense.
It really shows how fast things can turn in F1. A few races ago, Ferrari looked like maybe they could challenge. Now, it's questions about internal issues and performance deficits. Imola is huge for them.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, one last area to touch on briefly. Jack Doohan at Alpine. The word from F1 blogs wasn't exactly positive, was it?
No, it sounded pretty terminal, honestly. Their take was quite direct. They basically called his F1 debut in Abu Dhabi last year a disappointment.
Harsh, but maybe fair.
And noted that the buzz around him since then has been mostly negative. They felt that despite a, quote, dignified effort, he just hadn't made that vital impression.
Which is everything in F1, right? You need to grab attention, show something special.
Exactly. F1 blogs pointed to things like his public comments, sometimes backfiring, the crash in Suzuka didn't help, and then fading out of the points late in Miami.
Just couldn't string it together consistently?
Seems that way. The feeling was he needed a spectacular result, something stand out, and it just never quite happened. F1 blogs even suggested Franco Colapinto was perhaps more deserving of the opportunity.
Wow. It really underlines how brutal the sport is. Getting a chance is one thing, making the absolute most of it is another.
Totally. Doohan got 6 Grand Prix starts, which is more than many drivers ever dream of. But F1 blogs felt he lacked that decisive spark, that moment of inspiration that could have maybe changed his trajectory.
They compared him to Albon's early days, acknowledging Albon had incidents too, but he also showed those flashes of real speed early on.
Right. It's about translating potential into undeniable on-track impact.
Yeah.
And F1 blogs concluded Duhan just didn't quite manage that, even though the Alpine was, at times, an acceptable car capable of points.
A tough situation. He ended up being one of the few drivers not to score in Miami, wasn't he?
Yeah, him, Alonso, Lawson, Bortoleto, I think F1 blogs listed, just highlights the missed opportunity.
Okay, so wrapping all this up, what does this Miami fallout really mean for you, the learner, trying to follow the complexities of F1?
Well, I think it really throws a spotlight on the constant flux, the drama behind the scenes that makes F1 so captivating. We saw potential winners stumble.
You're a start.
Consistent performers like Russell shine maybe unexpectedly. Strategic gambles being made by teams like Williams with, well, uncertain futures.
And the internal pressures really mounting at a team like Ferrari.
Exactly. That relationship between driver and team, the incredibly fine balance of car development versus future rules, and just the sheer unforgiving nature of the competition, it was all there in Miami.
So this deep dive leaves us with a bit of a provocative thought to chew on, doesn't it?
Go on.
In a sport decided by tiny fractions of a second, how much does team strategy, internal harmony, that whole operational side, actually outweigh pure individual driver talent and raw car performance?
That's a good one. The perennial question, really, and one that's definitely going to keep unfolding as this 2025 season races on.
For sure. And for more deep analysis like this, and just to keep completely plugged into everything happening in Formula One, you should definitely head over to F1 Blogs. It's shaping up to be the go-to online spot for all things F1.
Absolutely. Keep it bookmarked.
And hey, if you enjoyed this discussion, we've actually just launched our new F1 Blogs YouTube channel. We'll be posting ongoing updates, more discussions like this one.
Yeah, lots more content coming there.
So make sure you find F1 Blogs on YouTube and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything.
Definitely subscribe.